Toby, are you okay with me starting the webinar?
Fire away. Hello, fire away.
Good morning and welcome to the special committee of the whole meeting for November 20th, day 2 of budget 2026 deliberations. We will start as we always do with our land acknowledgement. As we gather here today, let us be reminded that the community in which we live, work, and play is situated on traditional, unceded Algonquin First Nation territory. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Anishinaabe, thank you, people, and express our respect and support for their rich history and culture. Call the meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. The suggested motion is that the agenda be accepted as presented. Moved by Councillor Comley, second by Councillor Kavanagh. All in favor? Opposed? See none, and that has passed. Oh boy, it's early. Stumbling my words this morning. Declaration of pecuniary conflict of interest and general nature thereof. Does anyone wish to declare a pecuniary interest or conflict of interest? See none. And we will start. We will be moving into closed session to begin today's session. It's regarding labor relation matters. The suggested motion is that the committee move into closed session at 9:02 a.m. to discuss matters subject to the Municipal Act Section 239-2, labor relations or employee negotiations, and the following persons be permitted to participate in the meeting: Diane Smithson, CAO, Teresa McConkey, Treasurer, Laura Skull, Manager of Human Resources. Then mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Kavanagh, Councillor Sakaspina, all in favor? And we are moving into closed session. Councillor Conley? Thank you. Welcome back. You will have a rise and report. Oh, my computer is restarting.
Oh, I'm gonna take a while.
We will have a rise and report from Diane Smithson, please.
Thank you. Staff direction was provided in closed session for all items. I need to make a correction. It was one item that had multiple parts to it. That's why I said staff direction was provided for all items because there were some parts to the one item.
Thank you for that. And we will move to business update budget status from November 13th, 2025 budget meeting with Teresa, and then Teresa will continue on with the discussion of the parking lot items.
So during our last meeting, council identified about 38 items that they wanted to discuss, either changing, adding, or removing from the proposed budget. And since that date, we've added, I think, 3 more. Staff have requested 3 more. So we're going to go through a list of 40 items. We've actually already done 5 of them, 2 of them last week, and the other ones in camera today. So we're going to start at number 8 with business mapping.
Is there any questions or discussion? We'll start with Deputy Mayor Tennant.
Scratch it.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor Tennant. Councillor Comley.
I agree with Deputy Mayor that this is not worth the money at this time, so I would also scratch it.
Mayor Randall.
Sorry, are we just getting consensus or are we voting on each individual item, I guess is my question.
So my thought was, if we have consensus, we'll leave it on this list. If you don't come to consensus, I'll pull it aside. We'll finish the list. At the end, we'll vote on the list and any individual ones that we need to.
So then, just using this as an example, we've had a member say, scratch it. We've had somebody else. If nobody else speaks, we're just going to scratch it, or do we all have to just rate? Like, I just want to be clear on how we're determining what's getting scratched and not, because I could just go 8 through 15 scratch and just speed this thing up, unless there's I'm not trying to rush things. I'm just trying to lay out a thing moving forward. Most of the things in red are things that we already said to pull out. So do we really need to discuss those, or are we just reconfirming that we're still in the same position? Perfect. Thank you. I agree. Number 8, kick it.
So I'll change my question and ask, we're going to remove business mapping from the budget. Does anybody disagree?
Perfect.
And
Okay, we're moving to the next. We're going to defer the agenda building software project to 2027. Does anyone disagree? Perfect. We are going to reduce the budgeted amount for the council chamber technology from 25 to 15. Does anybody disagree? No. We're going to defer the moving AMPS to the online portal. We're going to defer that to 2027. Anybody disagree? We reduced the budget on the ERP system by $50,000. Anybody disagree? Toby has a question.
Could you just tell us what that acronym is? ERP?
So it stands for Enterprise Resource Program, and it's the financial software.
Thank you.
We're going to reduce the budgeted amount for the web security sign on as a single, something like SAAS, but it means single sign. Okay. So we're reducing that by 5,000. Anyone disagree? The fees and charges assessment, we're just changing, reducing the budget by 34,000 and changing the funding source To the half grant, there's no tax implication whatsoever. Anyone disagree? Perfect. Dave proposed that the fire department's per diem budget be reduced by $4,400. Anybody disagree? We unfortunately have been reduced on our OMPF, our Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund grant, because we're no longer a small municipality. They're phasing this funding out for us. They've been phasing it out at 15%. This year, they're going to up that to 20. So we have a reduction of 11,305 in revenue in the budget. I wish we could. We're going to remove the duplicate tourism kiosk project and the duplicate Carlton Junction electrical project. I assume there's no. For McEachern Drive, we just changed the funding from cost recovery to DCs, and there's no tax implication on that. Look for hands. We're going to defer the Pegasus Park to 2028 and increase the budget at that time, but you'll approve that then. Anybody? The pump track repair, the Centennial Park, the arena accessible washrooms, and the canoe club paving, we're going to carry forward the funding from 2025 to finish the projects. Anybody? No tax impact on any of those items, no. The Francis daycare roof replacement, we're going to defer to 2030. There's no taxes. It's childcare reserve funded. Then the two pool projects, the dehumidification system and the building code repairs, we're going to defer to 2027. It's funded by debt. There's no tax implications. Okay. 28.1 and 2 go together. So we've applied for a grant to cover the $10,000 event greening project that was proposed by the Environmental Committee and $90,000 worth of active transportation initiatives. We're suggesting that we add the grant to the budget and the projects to the budget only if the grant is received. So if the grant isn't received, we will not do the projects. So no tax implication there. Okay. Then 29 is in two parts as well. You requested that we move the funding for the library accessibility upgrades to the museum accessibility upgrades. We're good with that?
No, we're just.
Not to, like, it's in and out. So zero tax impact if we do the two. Yes?
Sorry, Mayor Randall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to, just not a question, just more say this out loud, is that's just a proper utilization of money. We have a need in one spot. We're going to spend that money anyways. That's just a wise transfer of funds. And that's what I like about this group is we see something that needs to get done. It makes sense. We just do it. We don't bicker and argue over it. That's a wise move of money.
Deputy Mayor Tennant.
So I was speaking to Ross about this $40,000. He's going to be bringing this every year for accessibility upgrades in all kinds of different places in the community. And this is partly from our accessibility audit, partly from new legislation and so on. But it's a great move, and it gives us the opportunity to know that every single year we're going to be able to make some upgrades with the same budget amount. So that's great.
Okay. Number 30 was a discussion about adding a path between St. Greg's and Highgate to the budget. After confirmation from Nikki and Guy, the school's not removing the path, so we don't need this project in. You wanted to take out the transit RFP assistance unless we get a grant, or do you want to remove it altogether?
Deputy Mayor Tennant.
I'd say we remove it until we hear more from the county study, as well as wait on a grant. So just scratch it for the time being, I'd say.
Counselor, one sec, Counselor Conley?
Just, do we have a grant lined up for this that if we receive, we have to move forward on any work? Is there a grant in the pipes already?
No, but there are both federal transit grants as well as provincial, kind of on an annual basis. So we could apply, but I do agree it kind of makes sense if we could maybe apply with the county as a collaboration. I think you get extra points if you do things like that. So it might be wise to wait for the transit study results. And if a grant came along, we'll apply. Last time we got the 50,000 towards doing our study, and the county got the same pot of money to do theirs. So
So that one reduces our tax ask by 25,000. Number 32 is the fire training facility design work. It's partially DC funded. You talked about deferring it or removing the project entirely. So just which one?
Mayor Randall?
Thank you. Sometimes things happen, I think, for a reason. This morning, there was a great article about Almont's training center and how everybody in the province comes to Almont to use that center. We are literally next door and can use that. If people are coming from New Lisgard and up north, and Iqaluit, I think is one that I saw, to use their facility, then we can use that facility. It is a massive pot of money that's needed to build that facility, when we have one that obviously is very well situated and works for everybody else. I would, in the future, I would just take this off. I've been asking for it to come off permanently, I think, for a number of years now. It's not that I don't want our firefighters to be trained. I think we have an excellent fire crew. I respect them all. I'm just asking that they drive 7 minutes down the road to Almonts, or however long that is. But in the future, if we as a county want to collaborate and we need to build a new one, every member of the county should get in a room, per capita, fund into a new one that we all can use, and then bring people from all over the place to also utilize. And if somebody wants to put that proposal together, I'm glad to listen to it, and it probably would be in some form of favor of it as well. Just not one singularly for here when there's already one that we can use nearby. Thank you.
when this item came up previously in previous budget discussions in other years, I believe the request was that a business plan come forward as to, who else could use it and why it was needed, and, cost sharing into it by other users in the county or wherever. So, and we have not seen that yet.
Deputy Mayor Tennant?
Further to that, and I won't be too long about it, the land value in Carlton Place is too high to put one of these things. Like, we don't have square inches worth, nothing to put something like this, whereas surrounding us is lots of places where there's appropriate zoning and cheaper land to do something like this. It's a short drive. So I think whatever we do in the future should be more rural.
Any other discussions? I will concur with both Mayor Randall and Deputy Mayor Tennant. I saw that this morning when I was having my coffee on Facebook about the site, and Mayor Lowry and Deputy Mayor were raving about how great it was, and people coming from all over. And I went, same as Mayor Randall's, where I'm like, wow, seeing this morning, it's just appropriate that it pops up. So I certainly agree with the comments on this.
Okay, so that is a tax savings from the budget request of 21,668. The council so now we're going to get into the ones that are probably going to take some more time. We're down at 33, so we're almost there. But so the council remuneration proposal.
Councillor Conley?
The proposal that's on the table, are we talking about per diems for committee work, or are we talking about increase to base salary?
So the one that's been included so far is the per diem use. But you can decide either way.
Deputy Mayor Tennant.
So although I like the idea, I spoke to it last time. I don't think we're ready with that plan yet. I think there's a lot of kinks to work out, and I don't know, like, it's going to take some work to sit down and hammer out how that might look. If, I mean, I would support a placeholder or any other suggestion. I don't really know what to do with it at this point. I think we're out of time. If we were going to try to implement this, I don't know how long it would take, but anyways, I like the idea. I like where it's going. I just don't know right now if we're ready to put any money towards it.
Councillor Atkinson.
Yeah, until we actually make a decision on it, I wouldn't mind just leaving this unfunded for next year and fill it in from any year-end surplus so we can continue our conversations into 2026, because it's not going to take effect until 2027. Well, it's the very end of the year anyways. Yeah, it's a month and a half worth of whatever that we're talking about. So I just leave it unfunded for now.
Any other discussions? Councillor Kavanaugh.
Yeah, I agree with that too, because I think in my mind, some conversations have to happen about the committees of the town, what we feel their continued, work should be, and what council's role in those committees should be, because yeah, there is a broad swing of depending on which committee you're on and what role you serve on that committee as to the time it takes to fulfill that role. And I think we just need to do a little bit more analysis of what we see the future of that work to look like before we assign a dollar amount to it, because it does vary quite a lot.
Any other discussions or comments? See none? You're out.
Okay, so we will not add that to the budget. And just how we're gonna move that forward, staff is gonna need direction at some point to ask what to bring forward for approval. Okay. Do you want a working group put together to bring a proposal for that to the town? So if you guys want to decide who's on that, I can administrate that internally.
Mayor Randall, yeah.
I think based on the last report that we just received, I think it would be good for the three to come from the 5 members of the council and just leave Deputy Mayor Tennant and myself out of it. And whatever you guys bring forward, I know it'll be well thought out and will probably be the right thing. So that would be my statement on that, is just Andrew and I just stay out of this one.
Thank you, Mayor Randall. Is there anyone volunteering to sit on this committee? I will, for one. Councillor Atkinson and Councillor Kavanaugh. Do we have to move that?
Okay, on to the next. 34 was a council asked for a sidewalk on Lake to the boat launch, which would be 42,000 addition to the budget.
Mayor Randall.
So I guess maybe what I would like to hear about, because this obviously, I don't think it was overlooked by the Public Works Department. Guy saw that, determined that it might not have been needed. That this came up generically as far as walking, past, I think it's where the MUP ends, where it's chained off. Is that kind of where that? Right, but where does this, because there's a sidewalk there, it ends at that. Sorry, I do have a question, but go ahead, Tracy.
So Diane just reminded me, we can fund that from DCs, and so Guy could go explore if it's possible, what it would be. We can add this project to the budget funded by DCs. There's no tax impact.
Sure, I like that. I guess my request would be, since we already have a MUP that runs along the river, do we extend the MUP to the end of the parking lot where all the boats park to the other side of it? And asphalt's cheaper than concrete. Maybe that's just a new proper way. I know it's in the floodplain and whatever, but just a question to ask is there alternate opportunities rather than a concrete sidewalk, a MUP? Either one, I would fund from DCs.
Deputy Mayor Tennant.
Yeah, I'd really like staff to have a look at that, extending that MUP. Yes, there's a low spot. It floods every year, but for 85% of the year, it's above water, and it would be a better connectivity to our trail system at Roy Brown. There is a gap there where we can't do anything about it, but I sort of envision the MUP gets brought over closer to the boat launch, so along the back of the parking lot. Then there's maybe some sort of hash marks or indication of a crossing towards Roy Brown Park, so that we can at least alert people that there are going to be people on bikes walking and so on. But I think that's a better approach.
Councillor Conley.
I think we'd have to include a provision for keeping that MUP accessible during the winter, because right now it's not accessible during the winter, which is why people walk down the side of the road. So that's where the sidewalk would fix that.
Councillor Atkinson, then I'll go to you, Mayor Randall.
There we go. Yeah, that was my only question, was whether or not that was going to be cleared in the winter if it's not a sidewalk and it's a trail. But either way, the opportunity, what the road work is being done on Lake Avenue anyways, so the opportunity to include the project while the work was getting done, so the grading can happen. Whether it's a sidewalk or a muck, I'm 6 one way, half a dozen of the other. But it was an opportunity to get this done while the work was in place, and funding it from DCs. In my mind, it makes perfect sense.
The other thing is, you'll remember just in the past month, we had the presentation of the condos at Lake, and perhaps this could be added, that the sidewalk, because when we did Franktown Road 355 and 347, we asked for them to put the sidewalk down Franktown Road, if you recall. So maybe this is a discussion too for Nikki, to have them extend the sidewalk at least as it fronts their property. Between O'Donovan. Right, right. So that might be another option as well.
Mayor Randall.
I just can't remember, does Public Works staff plow that MUP that runs behind the arena along the river in the winter, or is it just left off? If it is left off, then I think we need to question, because Councillor Atkinson is probably right, that they would plow a sidewalk. If they're not plowing the first 80% of that MUP, and then we add a MUP, then they're probably not going to plow it. So all things to think about. I like punting it back to staff, finding out what's the best, and whatever works, I would go with.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to belabor it. Staff will go and look. There's Key. Staff will make a proper recommendation. And he's right there. He's right there. What I was going to suggest is that the reason this came up is because the road work was being done at the same time. And what I was going to suggest is also to consider the fact that if a sidewalk is put on that other side, especially with the new residents off O'Donovan, it creates a pathway to Roy Brown Park where people do not have to cross the road with their dogs, their bikes, their kids, and things like that. And while the road's being done, that's the opportunity to look at it. But again, I defer to our expert in the room.
And our expert in the room just walked in.
Through the chair, we'd have a little bit more of a difficult time putting it on the south side of the road, simply because right now there's no curb or anything that exists there. It'd be very simple to extend it along the north side. The curb's already in existence. Obviously, the sidewalk terminates just past O'Donovan, and just to extend it would be a lot simpler. To the question that was posed earlier, yeah, we don't do anything on that trail. That's a Parks and Rec trail. It doesn't get any winter maintenance and doesn't get any attention from public works whatsoever, but we do plow the sidewalks. So if the goal is to have year-round access to the boat launch, Roy Brown Park, then the sidewalk would probably be your best bet on the north side.
Thank you, Guy. Mayor Randall?
Since you're here, Guy, we would butt that up to the parking lot where the boats are. Would we then wrap that sidewalk around to continue past to the actual boat launch, or would we just stop it at? That's the benefit of a MUP would be you could extend it past the actual parking to the boat launch itself, thus being able to cross to Roy Brown Park. If you're just going up to the edge of that parking lot, then you're still going to have to traverse past the parking, past the boat launch to Roy Brown. I'm just curious.
Through the chair, I guess it's the desire lines for the pedestrians in that area. If we go with the sidewalk to the edge of the parking lot, and even if we wrapped it around the parking lot, most people will just cross the parking lot. They just won't bother taking the long detour around to get where they're going, because the traffic in the parking lot isn't all that busy. Obviously, people will park there with their boats and whatnot and wait for it, or with their trailers and wait till after they're done to remove them. But it's not considered a hazard. There's not a lot of moving parts in that area. Everybody's driving very slowly, so there's not a hazard that people would go, oh, I can't cross there and I want to go around. So we could put it in if that's council's desire to go around it, but I don't know that it would be used.
I'm just, yep. I would take your expert opinion and agree with you wholeheartedly. Once you said it out loud, made perfect sense to me. So anyways, DCs.
Deputy Mayor Ted?
Could we have a report brought after budget about which would be a better option and how we would go about it?
With respect to the changing the alignment of the MUP or the sidewalk?
Sorry, just, yeah, whatever is on the table as a report, which, you know, what would you suggest would be the best thing to do? But we don't have to make the decision today.
Through the chair, again, it all depends what council wants as far as year-round access, because I don't think we'd want to start plowing the Riverside Trail pathway at this time. It's just much easier just to put in the sidewalk and continuously plow that. Our buggies are on the roads anyways, and we have snow removal operations along the road to get rid of any banks after whenever they accumulate. So I think it would be better from a year-round perspective to have the sidewalk. The trail right now comes out to the road as well, Riverside Park Trail, just a little bit further. So you'd have to, again, you're at the sidewalk or at the curb already, so you're coming along the curb line with the pathway, and to go around, I just don't see people using it to go around. Like the desire line will be the quickest point from point A to point B for that one.
Thank you, Guy. Follow?
Yeah, I don't see people using that in the winter at all. Where are you gonna go? There's nothing down there for you in the winter. I wonder why I mean, now the entrance to the subdivision would, I guess you'd cross the street and use it from there if you wanted to walk along that route, but I just don't see it being used that much in the winter. There's nothing down there. So anyways, whatever. I know, but that would be the MUP, would be direct access if we did it that way. But there isn't an access if we don't. So if we're going to Roy Brown Park and you get to the parking lot, you're just walking across the parking lot. If the MUP were to be an access, you'd actually have someone, you know, whether biking or whatever. Anyways, either way, I'm fine either way.
Councillor Comley?
Yeah, I'm in favor of the sidewalk. I walk that a lot, and there's a lot of people that walk on the road a lot, especially in the winter. I don't think crossing the parking lot is that big of a deal, and that is what people are going to do anyways. If for some reason it gets busy, we could maybe put paint on the road for a cross location, but I'm in favor of leaving the 42,000 in the budget for a sidewalk on the north side.
Thank you. No, I agree with Councillor Comley on those comments. Yeah, I was just gonna say, don't run away, Guy. There may be additional questions coming up. Teresa?
So number 35 is lighting on Lake and Coleman where the OVRT crosses at 40K each spot for 80,000 additional tax funded project.
Councillor Conley.
Yeah, I had a question about what the 40,000 was. Is this a full PXO or is this just some lights? Because it's a lot of money for some lights.
Through the chair, it's for a full PXO, a signalized PXO like we have on downtown street or at Moore, the Moore crossing, so that the flashing lights will come on with the push buttons, solar powered. And right now they're not in there because of the traffic volumes are not high enough to warrant them. But that's not to say that in a few years' time they won't be. So rather than put something else in and then still have to come back here with a demand for, and ask for $40,000 for these PXOs, it kills two birds with one stone, if you wish.
And a follow-up, Councillor Conley?
I'm just wondering how far down the road they are going to be warranted with the traffic and if just some of those solar lights like we put on other dark sections of the trail would be enough to illuminate the area a little better.
Well, through the chair, I went and had a look at the one on Lake, and there is a new LED light there. I don't find it all that dark. What it is, I think, is just people are still not quite used to having to stop there for pedestrians, and certainly coming off both sides. They're looking straight ahead, and they're not looking at the edges because it's not a traffic signal light or a flashing light. So I don't think it's really that it's that poorly lit at the one on the Lake. And as Mayor Randall said, there is a lot of light around the one on Coleman as well with the other facilities. There's a light at Lansdowne. There's obviously lighting as you go towards the intersection of Coleman and Franktown and more. And there's a lot of light coming off the park area as well. So I just think it's one of those situations where people are not necessarily, especially at night, not expecting to stop and are focused ahead and not focused on the sides where the people might be standing. And as well, sure, during the winter months when people are using them, we don't have the center bollard in anymore because we can't with snow operations. So as you've noticed, we've taken them out recently. So this would just provide another level of safety at those two locations, because though the traffic levels aren't at the warranted amount, they are still high. It's just by virtue of the traffic manuals, it's not absolutely necessary right now. But you know, like I said, in a few years' time, with the growth that we're experiencing, and maybe we're already there. So.
One more follow-up. Is there any cost savings to doing the two at once, or would doing one this year and one another year be a similar option?
No, there's really no cost saving in bulk there. It's just having Partham, who's our traffic engineering specialist, come out and do the installations. They're quite economical when it comes to their labor rates. It's just the cost of mounting the poles, pouring the bases in, getting the solar lights and getting the flashing lights in place, and painting the crosswalks. Well, in this case, the crosswalks are already painted, so that'll be already in place.
Thank you. Councillor Kavanaugh.
Thank you. Okay, unpopular opinion, possibly, but I don't like PXOs. I like crosswalks. I don't like lighted crosswalks, and the reason I don't like them is because, well, twofold. One, I watch people use them all the time. Half the time they don't push the button, so they're a moot point. And I think when you don't have a light, people stop and look, and I actually find that safer as a pedestrian. Like, I walk a lot, and for one, I don't find either of these two locations particularly dark, but I stop and look for traffic before I cross. And I think sometimes when you have a lighted crosswalk, people get lulled into a false sense of security. And I've watched it happen on Bridge Street where they push the button, don't look, and just walk. And the guys coming down haven't noticed the flashing light. So I understand why people appreciate them and they're seen as a safety thing. I actually think sometimes they cause an issue because it gives you that false sense of security. Oh, I push the button, I can walk now. And I see people crossing Bridge Street all the time, like looking at their phone, or kids just pushing the button and going. And yeah, unpopular, but I don't like lighted crosswalks.
Mayor Randall?
I think your choice of words is wrong. It's not unpopular. I think your points are extremely valid, and I was going to make much the same thing, is that both of these crossings have line of sight for a good long distance both ways. On Lake Avenue and on Coleman, they're not obstructed either way. People need to be patient and realize they're going to lose the battle with a vehicle. Every time. Right. And I use that one on Lake way more than I do the one on Coleman. And because I walk that semi-regularly. And it's just being patient and acknowledging, like, even if you put your hand out and wave, people will see you and stop. But so not unpopular. I think the safety is paramount. We all should maybe go back to the 70s and 80s and look both ways before you cross the street, and expect that the people driving, again, one of the things we have to worry about is this: people are distracted more often, which puts more of the onus on the people. Whether you've got a light flashing or not, if someone's staring at their phone, they're going to go through that light. At the end of the day, I got two questions. These weren't in the budget because you didn't feel that they were necessary currently. Am I correct in that assessment?
You are correct.
Thank you. So although there are times when council see things around town that we bring to staff throughout the year to add to budgeted items, that's a good thing. That's what we're here for. We hear from citizens. We see things with our own eyes. We're out and about looking at things differently. So we bring them to staff. Staff then make a judgment call and put them in or not. Last minute decisions that aren't coming from staff, I'm not really a big fan of because we're not the experts in these. So we give this to Guy. So my next question to you, Guy, is would you put these in this year?
They are not warranted as of the traffic counts we've done recently. So no, I wouldn't put them in. There's no need to put them in this year.
Thank you. And that doesn't mean that we don't want people to be safe. It's that there are times that we plan for these things to happen. And probably I would suggest that Lake Avenue with my eye would be the one we would put in first at some point. It's a busier road than that portion of Coleman. The one down on Coleman and Park was warranted. It's a highway down that way. And I think it's justified through school zones, all that stuff. My next question is, would there be grants we could apply for safety reasons from either level of government for PXOs and safety in these manners?
So the last time that we got a grant for the crossovers was for the downtown project. We did get grant funding for the 3 PXOs that were put in there. I would think it would probably be a pedestrian, an accessibility grant. But I think we would need, in order to justify it, probably the warrants to say that they're necessary to help support the grant application.
Okay, that's fine. And that's warranted. I know that the province just took everybody's speed cameras away and there was money available through that. I don't know if that would fall in line.
So I think the grant funding that they just announced, the pot of money, it's for communities that actually had those speed cameras and they got removed. It's to replace them with something else. We don't have any, so we're not eligible.
We were really close. I guess what I would do is I would lean on the staff's expertise in this and have them bring it forward when they feel it's necessary. Again, I'm all for putting an educational project behind on the town websites to remind people to be safe and respect each other on, bikes, walking, all that stuff, and look for grant opportunities to pay for these things one way or the other. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Tennant?
Yeah, I'd advocate delaying until we have the numerical justification to doing this, which again, would possibly give us options for grants. So we don't need it right now. Let's wait and spend somebody else's money if that time comes. And I don't, last I looked at that, I don't think it's just for places that lost their cameras. I don't, and we were looking at them anyways. So we actually put some work into cameras here at the county level at committee. So I don't know how that qualifies or not. But anyways, either way, if we can get a grant, better off.
Counselor Conley?
Yeah, I'm in agreement of deferring these this year, and also if and when we are having the conversation on where to put safety PXOs, I think we need to include a Bridge and High. Because right now there isn't even a pedestrian crosswalk there available, so. Yeah.
Something made me think there might be DCs for these. So I opened up the study and sure enough, pedestrian crossover on Lake at Ottawa Valley Recreation Trail. It said from 26 to 29, because we didn't know the exact time frame, 40,000 with 16,000 being able to be funded both for it and for the one at Coleman. So you got 16 out of the 40 that could be DC funded with the 24, so 48 instead of requiring 80. Okay, so, or it would be tax funded, 48 instead of 80.
Thank you, Diane. Mayor Randall?
Man, I actually was gonna suggest that. I was like, man, we're throwing a lot of DCs right now. We don't need to add anything to it, but I would say terrific. Those DCs could be applied when the numbers justify and that we would just not have to pay so much. So great, excellent. I would still do it when Guy says we should based on the traffic volume.
The rules there are changing with DCs and we actually have a requirement. I think that we have to show that we're spending 60% of DC dollars. So just so you know.
Any other questions? Any other questions? So I will say, because I'm the one who did bring this forward last week, thank you for the wholesome conversation. I think that's what we all are great at. I respect everyone's decision. I brought it forward as a safety concern, understanding council's position on it. Thank you for entertaining the idea I brought forward with it. And respectfully, I absolutely agree with, at this point now, after this discussion, of deferring it. So thank you.
Just last week, we didn't review Diane's capital projects, so she's just gonna whip through them quickly here in case you want to put one on this list.
So the capital in my area was the health hub support for 90,000, which was a commitment that we made. Okay. Second one was the OVRT rest stop. You recall that we gave pre-approval, but that we would fund the 34.7 as a to be funded out of this year's budget. So that's already a commitment as well. We also had in here the police detachment design. And it is in here at 4.845 million, with DCs covering about 1.7 million of that, with the rest being debt. I doubt we're going to spend that amount of money, but it's in there as a placeholder. We have lots of these projects, including like the storm, what are they called? Pump stations, where it's a multi-year project. So we show the initial amount in the first year, but then we're carrying over leftover amounts. The same thing would apply here. So even though it's showing as such a large amount, it's showing as debt funding, not taxation at this point, and DC charges. So if you want to reduce the amount, that's fine. It's not going to change in terms of the allocation of how it's funded, so much from DC, so much from debt, or you just put it all in right now and we just keep carrying it over. And if it's not needed because we don't happen to get it, none of it's going to be spent. So one is the tourism touch sign improvements. So we have some improvements we need to make on that, and that is in the amount of $10,000.
Thank you, Diane. Mayor Randall?
The tourism touch sign improvements, that was one of the duplicated ones that was in Blake's and not in yours. So that is not taxed out of your You're saying it is, but it's not. Am I correct?
That one is showing us, I can't remember. Oh, sorry. Regardless, we've taken one of the two projects out. We will only do it once and include the funding only once.
Okay, I just double check because that was just one of the ones I had highlighted that was duplicated, so it,
Okay, and for that particular project, the sign is in, it's at Lake Avenue at the OVRT, it's right beside there. And requirements are needed, it's not working quite right, and so we do need to make those improvements to it if we actually want to utilize the sign.
Deputy Mayor Tennant?
Is it possible to use the county tourism grant for that? Next year when it replenishes?
So we get $5,000 and we thought we would apply it to the Coleman electrical because we could make the pitch from a tourism perspective about the additional electrical thing because we use that space for all kinds of festivals and events and things like that. So that's the one. I mean, we only get 5,000. It's one or the other. And
Councillor Comley?
And can you just confirm on the debt side of it? We'd only get the debt if we needed it, right? We're not taking that. Yeah, okay.
Any other discussions on what Diane just brought forward? No? Probably a good time for a quick 5-minute break before we get to the end of this. It is currently 10:23. We will reconvene at 10:30. All right, welcome back from break, and we will be moving on to item 36. I will turn it back over to Teresa.
So we had an item in the budget to replace the town hall security system, which right now is those little boxes on our doors where the password hasn't changed in 7 years. And just a story about yesterday, I left the building in the afternoon and the back door was propped open. I closed it, came back half an hour later, the back door was propped open. If we had passes, we could give that access to our contractors so they would quit doing that. And I mean, that just left the whole building open to anybody.
So we have brought Ross up. If there's any questions or discussion, we're going to start it off with Deputy Mayor Tennant.
Yeah, I don't see the justification for this money. We have a security system. It would require some tweaks, I think, to make it more efficient. We can change locks. I don't think a $42,000 security system makes sense in this building at this time. Yeah.
Any other questions or discussions? Ross, you have something?
So I understand, I understand the concerns with the price. But the building is not safe. And the reason why I'm saying that is I've been working for the town slightly over 5 years. I've had access to this building probably for the last 4. There are exterior secured locks on the building, which I mean, I don't manage I manage the security, but without getting into all the ins and outs of our organization, I don't manage the keys. So I don't know who has keys. People that have left over the years, whether or not they still have keys. They're medical keys, like medical locks outside. So it's a secured one that you can't copy the keys, but if somebody walks out the building with a key, they all need to be changed. So I did a little bit of research in the last couple of days just to ensure that I'm up to speed on some of the information. We could change our system from the keypad system from the Unican system to a keyed system, to a secure key system, which would cost a little over $8,000. $8,000, okay? Every time somebody leaves with a key or loses a key, it'll cost $400 to change one cylinder, and there's 8 within the building that we would have to change. So that's $400 times 8. Okay, and that includes 1 key per cylinder. Each key to replace the key is $30 a piece because it's a secured system, whether it's medical or Abloy. So at the end of the day, those things start adding up. You have a fob system where somebody leaves, go online, press a button, that card is not available anymore, they cannot access the building. It's the exact same system that we just installed at the 2 daycare centers, 3 Francis and Carenbeck. So it's the same system. So the training would be simple. The work with it would be simple. There are concerns of staff that work in this building that people have worked here still have access to spaces in the building. The other thing is, speaking to Teresa's comment about doors being left open. Yesterday, they were working on the bridge lights. So the contractors were in and out the back door. Well, the back door doesn't even have a lock on it. So they're in and out, they're propping open the door. People can come in the back door. I mean, you don't know. What we would do is we would have a card access for contractors, depending on what areas that they need to go to. I know Blake talked about the security with the server room downstairs. It's the same thing. There are electricians that need to get into the electrical room, and they're searching for people for a key and all those kinds of things. Again, they can be provided with that access. I think it's the way to improve security. It's the way that things are kind of moving forward. And one of the other advantages with the system that we have chosen is that instead of it comes with a fob system. you can access it with your phone. And a lot of people, like if you have a town phone, if you have a town-owned phone like I do, then you just be able to access it through that. You don't even have to have a phone.
And Mark's point about not being able to. change that.
Yeah, and the other concern is we have all these keypads throughout the building, and we don't have the ability to change those because we don't have the proper keying system and everything else. So the other option would be is if you want to continue with the system like that and be able to change it, then we'd have to replace them at about $1,500 a piece. And then it's labor intensive. So how often do we change those, right? Do we change the combination when somebody leaves the organization? Or do we change it once a month? Do we change it every couple months? Because we want to make sure the place is secure.
Thank you, Ross. Councillor Kavanaugh.
Thank you for elaborating on that. Yeah, those costs will add up over time, for sure. Question, because I've worked in buildings with these kinds of systems before. With the fob system, will it and does this system also track who enters what building when, so that if there is some sort of issue, we actually have that kind of data of who's been entering and exiting the building during a certain time frame?
Yes, it does. And we can also determine access to certain particular doors.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that because that has come up in other situations that I've worked in, that's been handy in solving a situation. So thank you.
Mayor Randall.
I think one of the concerns that I had, and I'll bring it up again, is there are certain doors, if we're talking about safety, and I can get behind it, is that there are certain doors in the building that if somebody wants in, they're getting in. That one being one, clerk's department being another, entrance door down to Public Works being another, the ground floor window behind me. Anyways, my point being is if we're talking about safety and not just tracking people and who's in and out, if we have a developer or a company that is propping that door open, now I know who you're talking about, so I don't think they're going to be back, or at least I hope they're not going to be back, not because I don't want them to be back, I just don't think they will be back. Then I would say, sorry, you don't get to work for us anymore. You're not following our safety rules within the town hall. Then, here's your one warning. Don't do that again. Like, there's ways to solve these problems. But if we're talking about safety and somebody comes through the council doors without the key fob, because all you got to do is lean a somewhat healthy shoulder into it and it will come open, then they have access to planning. They have access to Public Works. They have access to the clerk's department. They have access to finance. This isn't as simple as just putting a key fob in if we're talking about safety, not about access. And which means that we're not just spending $42,000 on a key fob system. We're spending more money on locks for the clerk's department, Public Works department, planning department, and finance. The only real truly secure office in this building is our office on the third floor. And people could get into that too. It would just take a whole bunch more hammering because the door's bigger and stronger. I'm not trying to poo-poo the idea. I'm trying to say, if safety is your concern, which I'm all for, we're spending more than $42,000. Or is that already budgeted in to replace the doors or putting locks on those doors so that should someone enter, they can't easily access the finance department as they can right now, or the planning or the building department downstairs as they can right now.
So yes, included in the cost is to make the doors more secure. I mean, I can tell you, anybody can get into anywhere if they really want to get in. But there's a difference between somebody planning and breaking in a window in the basement or breaking down the door that comes into the council chambers on purpose rather than somebody just coming in being angry and doing something, right? Those are different things. It's like with your house. You can have a security system on your house. You can have cameras on your house. People can still break into your house, even though doors are dead bolted and secured and that kind of stuff. But yes, we have included pricing to modify the doors so that they're more secure.
Yeah, I'm not worried about, yeah, if somebody wants in, you're right, 100%, they can get in. Now, talking about the county building, which Andrew and I work in all the time, it's delaying people. It's if there's a secured door, somebody comes in, we know somebody's here that we don't want, everybody shuts their doors and locks them. And if it takes them 5 minutes to bust it down rather than 30 seconds, then you can call the cops and do things to delay that person. County building is one. Every door there that somebody would have access to get through is a tough door to get through. Will they eventually get through it? Sure. That's my point, is I'm all for safety. We have our staff and our council and citizens within the building. They should feel safe, and I respect that. But as long as those things are going to be covered off, then I see this as being a beneficial thing. If they're not going to be, then I would say you got to find another, whatever it is, to get those doors secured. And I'm not talking about this because I know there's heritage aspects to this too. But once you get through that door, which is the one I'm worried about the most, then finance needs to be secured. Public, I don't know what you're doing for clerks, because clerk it's the only untouched portion of the building essentially, and it's got two heritage, I would consider doors. Or can there be a steel door that goes here so that you can't access the clerk's office or the front? I don't know how you do that. I just hope there's a plan for it. If I'm going to raise my hand for $42,000 for a fob system, I want the place to actually be secure.
Councillor Atkinson?
Yeah, I actually don't have a problem with the proposal. My workplace has had a fob system in place for the 18 years that the building has been in existence. And it's the same, I've had the same fob on my keychain for 18 years since I've been working in that building. I think if you look at this cost over the longer term, because this is a system that's going to last 20 years, where the alternative that you proposed with replacing cylinders, Medeco keys, it's an $8,000 installation cost up front, but all you need is to have 10 people forget their keys and you're right back up there to the $42,000 over 10 years. Or you have a couple of aggressive dismissals, and just over that time, it's going to cost the same amount of money over a decade at the end of the day. So I think and it's something that clearly needs to be done. So I think eating the $42,000 right now to put in a system that's going to last over the longer term and give the flexibility of some tracking and greater instant control just makes more sense in my mind. It's a lot of money, yes, but I think it's money that needs to be spent. And just think of it as $4,200 a year over the next 10 years, and it's a lighter load to raise your hand.
If I can just make one more comment about security. One of the things that we did identify a couple years ago through the treasurer's office was concerns with staff working at the front desk, and we introduced cameras about 3 years ago. So we're now monitoring that. We're now recording that. It's a deterrent, hopefully, for people that come in that might be a little bit angry because there's a sign that says you're on candid camera and that there's a camera right in front of you, kind of thing. So these things are deterrents for people and that type of thing.
Thank you, Ross. Any other questions or discussion? Deputy Mayor Tennant?
So I don't think we're all in agreement on this one. Might be something we bring to the end.
That's exactly where I was going, Deputy Mayor Tennant. So we will move that to later on.
So if we don't do that, if we don't do the 42,000, do we need to add money for replacing all of the locks and rekeying and new keys? And what would that be?
I would suggest that. So we're looking at about, well, I've got a quick quote, just a verbal quote of $8,000, so I would include $10,000 to do that, to cover it.
Sorry, so I will put those two things to the side and you'll vote on them as a separate motion, okay? Okay, thanks, Ross. Next one is you added money to the budget to hire an event person and discussed removing the money from the tourism initiative budget to fund that. So we have already included the event staff, but we need to talk about the tourism budget.
Deputy Mayor Tennant?
So is this their request, their full request?
So this was the money that was in the chamber at the bottom of their list saying if we wanted to do any of the marketing initiatives under the DDAP, the Destination Development Action Plan. This is that 19,000 that we're talking about.
Yeah, so I suggested last week to put everything under our, whatever Jess's position is called now, community development coordinator. And I mean, I think there's efficiencies there. I think it's just, it makes more sense for one person to be sort of directing those funds and those efforts and centralizing those efforts. Not to say that I'd be happy to move the entire funding there, give them the entire ask, just that it be managed by our own people in-house. I think it just makes more sense.
Councillor Secaspina?
So I'd just like to clarify, if the chamber needs money, they are to go to Jessica for this money and they will be able to acquire some money for tourism?
Deputy Mayor Tennant? Diane?
I think what I'm hearing is that the two parties are gonna work together to decide where that $19,000 is spent from. And then the bills would come into the town as opposed to the chamber and we reimburse them. So it's actually probably less work to do it this way.
So we have an extra 20,000 and we're leaving in this 19,000 is what I hear, unless somebody said.
Great. Councillor Kavanaugh?
I don't agree with that. I do agree with the extra event person being with our community development coordinator. That makes sense. It streamlines it. I would even say that any of the marketing activities in this line, like $20,000 for marketing activities, which is social media, print advertising, seasonal campaigns, those sorts of items. I question why that's not done by our communications team, who are managing the website, including the tourism page, who manage the town social media. I guess I question why, in a similar fashion, why event support is now being suggested to be directed under the person managing all the events in town. Why the communication of the branding of our town is also not under the umbrella of the person in charge of that messaging. Now, how that works, whether that's money allocated to that department or just that department has oversight on the spend and the messaging. Do you hear what I'm saying? Is that we're getting a lot of duplications in my mind in this scenario where there is a lot of crossover, there is collaboration and working together. However, our communications team are the one that own the communications plan for the municipality. They're the ones that manage the social media for the municipality, that direct the messaging and branding for our community. Why are they not directing the messaging as it relates to this one piece of the communication that's going out into the world about our community?
I think you can put the 19,000 either under Jessica's purview or Amanda's purview. I don't think it matters. At the end of the day, I think those parties are gonna work together. It's the 19 at the bottom.
No, I think she's talking about more than that.
Oh, you're talking about more than the 19
Yeah.
for the actual marketing Oh,
That's
sorry.
included in the,
And I'm just saying that that might be something that's a process that occurs over time. I'm just saying that all of this work was set up in a time where we didn't have internal staff fully directing this kind of effort. And now, the chamber does a wonderful job and they manage the info center and they create the souvenirs and they greet our visitors and, they do the magazine every year, the guide. But as we move forward and as we start to formalize these things, like now we have a communications plan, we have branding that we adhere to, we have messaging, we have themes and directions that as a municipality we're moving towards every year. These two things need to be working in cohesion together. And to me, it seems weird to have a bucket of money for communications and a bucket of money for tourism communications when in fact we're communicating similar things, right? Like, does our communications team have access to and oversight over the social media that tourism puts out? What's the backfill for that? Do we have multiple social media channels that speak to each other? Are we ensuring that they're in alignment at all times? Is that kind of close working relationship? And I think whether you're taking that money and putting it under, or whether you're just saying out loud that those activities have to be run through the filter of the community brand and approved, I think that is the direction we need to work for. Maybe this is the first step, that the marketing, the actual messaging that goes out for tourism should be run through the filter of the person in charge of our municipal communications, is what I'm suggesting.
So in the chamber budget, I'm seeing marketing activities of 20 with the option at the bottom to provide a marketing budget for tourism promotion of an additional 19. Are those the two pots that you're, okay? Yep, sorry.
Yes, those are the two pots. I'm saying one pot, like we discussed, is for event support, a person, and the other part is marketing. So communications.
Mayor Randall?
Thank you. And I'm just trying to do the exact same thing in my head. So I think part of what Sarah's asking is what Andrew's suggesting, is that we are giving part of that money to Jess to have the conversations with Jackie and the chamber to do what's best for tourism in Carleton Place. You're going just a little bit further. So we've already said we'd go 20,000 for staffing, which is going to be controlled by Jessica. So last year they came and asked for $20,000 for advertising and tourism initiatives, which we gave them. So that's Rachel, tourism, her salary, the 20,000 for advertising, correct? What else? Right, so okay. So that's what I'm trying to wrap my head around. Is it 60,000? So 20 for the staff, 20 for tourism, and an additional 20 for tourism, 19 for tourism? Or is it 20 for staff and 19 for tourism?
so right now in the budget, from the chamber's budget, it's $19,000 for the extra tourism initiatives.
Marketing budget for tourism promotion.
And there's also $20,000 within that budget.
For marketing activities, which includes 4-season social media campaign, photo and video acquisition, targeted print advertising for 4-season campaign, and they direct bill us for the expenses incurred for that.
So in addition to that, the other day, or separate from that, let's say, we've added $20,000 to the salary budget for an event help. Okay, so now my question was, do we take the 19 and fund that 20 with it? But now there's another piece on the table. So the 20 is moot now. Do we leave the 19 and the 20 with the chamber? What do we
Right.
do with that is, I think, what's on the table.
So now that I've got that straight, because that was confusing. So the question I would have based on what Sarah's asking, because I think that is eventually the model where we're going to move to. I personally, that whether everybody agrees to that or that's what we do, I like that suggestion. I think that's where we're eventually going to move this to some point. Do Jess and Amanda, with their current job load, have the capacity to take on what you're saying, even with that additional part-time staffer? Because that part-time staffer is for events, for Pumpkin Fest, Winter Fest, all that stuff is to make sure we have boots on the ground that we don't currently have. And we all agree that that's a good idea. What you're suggesting is we just take the tourism section 100% and just give it to them. Do they have the capacity to do so within their current jobs? Because Jess, we're just giving her an extra set of hands because she's taxed. So we're adding to her workload potentially. That's just that one. As far as the additional 20 goes,
So I see in the chamber budget, there's still staff costing for Rachel's position. So my understanding from this conversation was that Amanda and or Jessica would hold the keys to the pot of money. They would decide where they wanted it spent, and they would say to Rachel or her replacement when she goes on maternity leave, this is where we want you to spend that money. Make sure it works. That's how I envision this happening.
my question is, we gave them a pot of money last year and they're asking for another $19,000 on top of that pot. Are we comfortable with that? And I'm not so sure that I am, is my point. Regardless, I agree with Andrew. Whatever pot of money we give them, give it to Jess. Jess and Jackie can figure out how that's supposed to be divvy up and spent. I don't know that I'm convinced that we need to add another 20,000 to that. I just got told we were.
We're not adding, it's included. So in their budget, in their $99,500 ask is $39,000 for marketing. Above and beyond the $44,000 for Rachel.
So, and how much did we give them last year? That's what I'm trying to determine. 93,000 or 73,000? So they're asking for an additional 19,000 on top of what we gave them last year. So I'm not crazy. Do we want to give them the additional 19,000? That's my question.
Sorry, Deputy Lieutenant, are you still?
I'd be okay with the ask, but as Sarah mentions, it would be added to Amanda's budget, and Amanda would coordinate with the chamber however she thinks is best to spend that money, whether it's whatever they want to do. I don't care. It's Amanda's direction with chamber, and if it stays the same as they presented and Amanda's good with that, so be it. But I'd put the money in Amanda's budget for her to have those negotiations.
Councillor Comley?
Yes, so we'd be reducing the chamber budget by $19,000 and adding it to a town person to manage the money. So we're not actually changing anything, except for we are adding 20 to Jess's new position. So it's just taking the 19 out of the chamber budget and giving it to Amanda, is what we're talking about doing. It is new money. Sorry.
I'm just looking at, if you look at the page that we got from the chamber, it says on the far right column, approved budget 2025 was 93,318. What they're asking for 2026, which is the column one in from the right, is 99,504. So it's like a $6,000 increase.
Sorry, I misread.
I see that the 19 replaces the 20.
Yeah, it looks like.
Oh, Mayor Randall.
Clear as mud. So I revert back to Andrew's original comment that we just give that money to Jess. I don't know why you switched it to Amanda. I thought it was going to Jess, but whoever, give it to a staff member. I would ask staff, Diane, to ensure that based on their current workloads, that either Jess or Amanda, and I know the answer is probably going to be yes, just double check to make sure that this added stuff is not going to, tax them. But I agree wholeheartedly. Let's give it to Jess or Amanda. They can coordinate with Jackie, and I'm good with the additional 6% as we would like, whatever 3% increase over last year, like we're doing for everything else. Thank you.
So I think Amanda and Jessica want to have say in how that $19,000 pot is going to be spent. As I said originally, I think they're going to make the decision, then they're going to have Rachel or her replacement or the chamber implement what they decide. Okay?
Councillor Sakaspina.
I realize eventually everything's gonna move in-house, but for now, I want to make sure that the chamber will have access to some money. I agree with the 3% increase, but if they're denied money, I'm gonna want to know why. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Apologies for all the confusion. I am not suggesting we deny the money. What I'm suggesting is the 19,000 that they are asking and above is what we've moved over
Yes.
to give event support. The $20,000 in their line item that they spend on marketing year over year is still there, but that it's directed by our communications person who will work with our tourism person directly to decide, because I question whether we need to be spending that much money in addition to the money we're already spending promoting, branding, all those things. So I would rather our communications person direct how that money is spent in relation to our community development coordinator as well, because they work closely together in developing a plan for the year. That is what I'm suggesting, is they will still, have their person and still do the info center and all that stuff. I just think the direction has to be more in-house so that we don't get those kind of overlaps. So there's those diversions from the priorities that have been established by the municipality into what is important for us in the coming year in terms of the audience we want to reach, the things we want to promote, those sorts of things. That's where I was going with that.
Any other questions or discussions before I chime in? So not to muddy the water any further, I absolutely agree with what Councillor Kavanaugh is saying. I've been doing marketing and advertising, as you all know, for 32 years. As an agency overseeing the clients for my business, I direct the campaigns to make sure there is no overlap, to make sure there's no communication that is different. We don't have, and right now, I think what Councillor Kavanaugh is saying is there is no oversight, like an agency handling business for a client. So I wholeheartedly agree there needs to be one individual who oversees all of the communication that comes out of our tourism department. And I agree that that should be our communications director with Amanda doing it. I just think there's less opportunity for overlap and mixed messaging or communication that gets out to the marketplace.
Okay, so what I have is that we're leaving the money, the $19,000 in, but the chamber's still going to use it, but they don't have control over it. And that all communications regarding tourism must be pre-approved before it's sent by our communications staff. Anybody disagree? Okay, that's in the list then. Be approved by communication. Okay, So the next one is 38, and it's the Mississippi Gathering project. We did have this project in the budget, but I mistakenly had the entire $35,000 carried forward from 2025, whereas we only had $7,000 in 2025. So the ask was really for an additional $28,000 to complete that project, and that would be tax funded.
Any questions?
Sorry. Can I leave, anybody dissent leaving that on this list? Perfect. 30,
Sorry, was there?
so 39 is planning for the recreation multi-use complex, funded by DCs, so no tax implication, but adding a project for $500,000.
Sorry, Mayor Randall?
These three, we should probably have a bit of a discussion about, or at least staff advising us. This came out of our rec meeting just the other day with Andrew, Dan and I. So just if you could tell everybody who's watching and will watch in council why we're doing that.
So in our meeting, our little working group, we discussed a number of different things, having kind of a joint project, perhaps with other parties. Perhaps if that doesn't work out, having our own project. And it's going to give us an allocation of some funding to perhaps do more legwork on whatever the preferred solution is going to be. But if we don't have any money in the budget, then we're not going to be able to move this forward. I think everybody agrees that we know there's going to be some additional recreational funding coming forward. We have to have some money to get the project a little bit further along in the planning process if we want to be successful in that grant process. So it's about having a pot of money. It's certainly not going to do an entire project, but it is going to allow us to have some funds to be able to assess and to move the project along whichever direction we choose to take.
Deputy Mayor Talent?
So the way I look at this is we've designated this project in our development charges study. And this is simply allocating some of those funds to where they're supposed to be designated in public. So everybody knows that's what we're doing with them. So this is just a designation to show people we're doing the right thing with the money.
Well, and it's approval for the committee to spend some of that money is really what this is.
Any other questions or discussions? Seeing none, move on.
So that one makes the list. Number 40 is Riverside Park Heritage Designation. Was not included in the initial budget. It's a $50,000 ask, which would be entirely funded by taxes.
Well, Nikki can come in. There is a staff report on the agenda that was already published for next week about this particular item. The Heritage Committee has put forward a request for this. This was already discussed by council a few years ago, and the committee was actually directed to look into having a heritage designation of Riverside Park. So we've had a request from the Heritage Committee into Nikki. Nikki has a report on outlining the options to move this forward. She believes the best way to do that is by retaining a consultant. That's what this $50,000 would be for. It's unfortunate the budget discussion is before the staff discussion with the report next week. But in order to finalize the budget, we needed to get something into the budget. So,
Mayor Randall?
Yeah, as the person who kind of brought this forward last term when, I think it was last term. Yeah, water plant discussion and, you know, just some offhand remarks that were made by staff at the time. Mark and I had a discussion a couple of days ago with regards to zoning in that area and that's not a thing? Okay, perfect. That's good to
No,
know.
yeah,
Sorry.
sorry, it's not pertinent for this project. It would not, zone 10 would not be a part of, would stop building on that property.
So that was just a zoning question that Mark found out that wouldn't have any effect on this. My question, I guess, would be is there a sense of urgency behind this? My answer would be no. I think that it should be investigated. So do we spend the 50,000 for an outside consultant to do this? Or do we over time keep it internal? Nikki, I think if I'm correct, has a designation in heritage attached to her planning. I'm just saying, like this is right up her alley. And if we weren't in a rush to get this report back, that, over time, this could get looked at internally, not spend the 50,000 or maybe spend less than the 50,000. Obviously she's going to have to allocate some time to this and maybe acquire some assistance outside. That's the question I'm posing to everybody is there a sense of urgency? And could we keep it in-house over a longer period of time to investigate the need for this? Thank you.
Diane?
So definitely one of the options in Nikki's report is that it could be done with working with the Heritage Committee with some staff support. And the 50,000 then would not be part of the budget, and it's just going to be a longer process is what she's outlined in her report.
Just quickly, she did ask and was approved for $50,000 in extra planning support in her operational budget.
Councillor Sekaspina?
Thank you, Teresa. That's just what I was going to say. This project's been underway for at least 8 years, and we have got it pretty well underway in the last few months. And Nikki did respond, and as Toby said, it's in her wheelhouse, and I think she can do it. But I really applaud Teresa for adding the extra little dollars. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Tennant?
Yeah, I think we all want to see this happen at some point. I think there's a couple of things. One, compiling the information, and I've done this before, it takes a lot of time, and the consultant's not going to be able to help us with it. Like, we're going to have to provide all the history and the background for this park and all this, cultural significance that might even require us to go and do interviews, like spoken interviews. I don't think we're ready for the consultant yet. I think we need some time to go around and collect that information, both the committee, various volunteers, various staff. I think we'd be seeing this money come back the next year because we wouldn't be ready to hire the consultant yet. It's a long process. And the other thing that we were just talking about over here is if there's any works that we need to get done on that property, I'd like them to happen prior to designation. So if we have any sewer water work, things that we're working on right now that go long, I don't think we should fast track this. Again, I'm fully supportive. I really love to designate the part. I think there's all kinds of really fun side effects are going to come out of getting those stories. If we're starting to do those research interviews, I think we're gonna have a lot of fun with this, but I don't think we need to rush it. I think we can push it for another year, collect all that information, and then start talking about how we're going to disseminate to the consultants.
Any other discussions? I think we have, sorry, Councillor Sekaspina?
How many dollars would be put into that little fund?
So Nikki has $50,000, the same amount as this, in her operating budget for a planning consultant to help with workload.
Any other? Sorry, Mayor Randall?
We're being transparent, which we should be. That $50,000 isn't all for this. This is for all kind of consulting outside, right? I don't want to, yeah, it's a contingency for support across all the projects that we're doing, not just this one project, just to be clear.
Fair enough. So I think unless I hear different, we're gonna take that ask off the list.
Lieutenant?
Having said that, I say yes, probably not ready to hire the consultant. However, there may be costs associated with moving forward with a designation that we incur in-house. I don't know if that's going to be hiring, but I wouldn't eliminate that entirely. I think giving the Heritage Committee or Nikki or whoever some money to get started on this is not the worst idea. You know, call it $5,000 or $10,000 just so they can start moving ahead with the project. I mean, they may have to pay museum staff to do some collection, and so you may need some hours there. But I mean, some freedom to move on this project while we're getting ready for the consultant, I think is not a bad idea.
All right. Have we not I think we've allocated $50,000 for additional expenses that Nikki may incur over 2026. Would that not come out of that?
Yeah, so my understanding is that's her contingency fund for consulting for everything she does in planning. She could allocate it to this some if she wanted to. I don't know how much she's gonna need that fund. I'll hold on.
Through the chair, you should have just banged on the door. I would have come running. Thank you. Yes. So the First Nations consultation does cost money. If we're going to go that route, there's mandatory consulting fees that come with that. I'd say if we were going to rely, and sorry, I've only caught about half of the discussion because I was in a case management conference too. If we're going to rely on the committee to prepare the reports, I think you're still looking probably at about $20,000 to do that. Was not my intention to use that same pot of money that I've asked for professional consulting fees for application review. Those are two different things. But I leave it up to council. I mean, you do have a staff report coming forward next week about the designation. I'm in your hands, whatever you'd like to do.
Thank you, Nikki. Mayor Randall?
So based on that information and that we could keep it in-house over a longer period of time, could I suggest that we take that 50,000 away, we add $10,000 in this year's budget to get the work that would be required this year, since I think this is going to be a multi-year project and we're not in a rush to do it, and with the expectation that we would add at the staff's request in next year's budget, whoever may be in the chair, another $10,000 to continue the work that needs to get done. And that way we're giving you 10,000 this year, committing to saying we'll have a discussion about the 10,000, see where you're at with that, see what the Heritage Committee has done, the museum's done, all that sort of stuff. So that's what my suggestion is. Let's give 10 and then add 10 into the budget next year for discussion.
Councillor Conley?
And to clarify, the Heritage Committee does already get some money allocation that they could add to the 10,000, correct?
Nikki?
Thank you. So I love Councillor or Mayor Randall's idea. I think that's great. I think you're right. Committee does have 3,000 this year. If we're going to rely on the committee to do the work, I'd say your fees required to participate in this project aren't going to be until the end of the project because we're looking at peer review, right? So, I mean, we could probably use the 3,000 from the committee this year to assist with the beginning of the engagement with First Nations. And then if you're prepared to punt all of 20,000 to next year to wrap up, by that point, we might even be able to whittle it down to something less than that and make it as part of the 2027 budget.
Thank you, Nikki. Councillor Sekespina?
So since I've been on the Heritage Group, there hasn't been a lot done, but we've gotten a lot done that that the 3,000 this year went to the rest stop, right? You remember that? The $3,000 we put towards the rest stop that's coming behind Braumeister, right? The $3,000 that we're getting this year, we were going to put, I don't know if you know that Prince of Wales School that was on High Street, there used to be a big cairn there. And somebody 30 years ago ran into it, destroyed it, never replaced it. So we were going to do that this year with the money. So it's up to everybody.
Diane suggests that we keep the 10,000 that Mayor Randall has suggested for this year and then additional funds next year.
Okay.
Mayor Randall?
Yeah, I don't want to step on the toes of the Heritage Committee if if they had that money set aside for a different project, I'm perfectly fine with that. I would say we just put the 10,000 in. If we only use 3,000 of it and it goes into a reserve and we add $10,000 to that, like again, if this takes 3 years, it takes 3 years. And if we add $10,000 in it till it's finished, and maybe that's the way I would do it. So let's just keep the 10,000 in. That's my suggestion.
Do we have consensus then to keep, sorry, Deputy Mayor Tennant?
Yes, I'm not gonna stop. That's a great idea. We'll do that. What I would say to Nikki though, is that if you hit a point, you know, with your $10,000 where you can't go any further, to bring a report back to council. So I don't want to stop the project. I just don't think you're going to need this money until later.
Okay, so I think we have consensus on that, Teresa.
Thank you. Excellent. So we're very near the end. So I think the next thing we should do is address the separate motion so that we know how much the bottom line is before we address the reserve thing. Okay? Because that could, you know, change your amount or whatever. So we're gonna discuss the town hall security system is included in the budget at 42,000. But the discussion is perhaps taking that out of the budget and replacing all of our current locks with 10,000. So it would reduce the budget by 32,000. So discussion, I guess, over to you.
So any further discussion on this? So Teresa brought 2 items forward, so I guess we should vote on. Mayor Randall.
Thank you. Yeah, hearing everything, I would not change the locks and spend the 8, which is probably, again, over time. Within the next 5 years, you're going to spend that $40,000 anyways with people leaving or lost keys. I will be totally transparent and say, I'm one of those people that lost a key. I would have caused, you know, $1,000 or $1,500 and it just, you know, it happens. People come and go from the organization for any number of reasons. And so you'd be constantly doing it. My biggest concern was, I just like, let's call it what it is. If it's safety, then there's other things that need to be done. And if Ross says that there's contingencies within that 42 to upgrade a door or 2 so that we're truly safe, then I'm good with leaving it in.
So I will call the question, which is, do we keep the $42,000 in the 2026 budget for the town hall security system? Do we?
Yeah, this is the separate one.
Seconded by Councillor Kavanaugh. So all in favor to keep the 42,000 in the 2026 budget? Opposed? And that motion has carried to keep it in.
Okay, so then back to the consensus list, which is awesome. All but one item. You guys are awesome. So right now you have taken out 309,837 out of the budget, which is a 1.88% of a tax increase. So we currently are using reserves to get down to the 3% that we proposed. We're using 1,154,125 out of the asset management reserve, but we did that to get to the 3%. So 2 questions I have, I guess, is what percentage tax increase is it that you want? And do we put the rest back into this reserve? Here it comes.
Okay, as we've done for the previous 3 budgets, we'll start off with Deputy Mayor Tennant and his 0% tax increase.
I will be generous and say I'd be comfortable at 1.95.
Sorry, Counselor Atkinson.
Yeah, I'd feel comfortable with that. The rate of inflation is currently sitting around 2.2%, at least it was year over year to now. And we've all gotten the email from folks, folks out there are being squeezed. So it says I think keeping things around the 2% mark would be completely fair and consistent with our average over the past number of years. And it would also not require us to suck so much money out of our reserves, because that's just deferred taxation at the end of the day, pulling from those reserves.
Counselor Sekaspina.
I love that, but I'm gonna ask Teresa a question. Teresa, I'm not a professional. I'm not an accountant or a treasurer. How do you feel about 2% and what condition are we gonna be left in?
Well, I guess our recommendation was 3, knowing that that would become 2.95, and that would be fine. Or 7 or 9 or whatever. That's the recommendation. Reducing that by a percentage, it's entirely up to you. It would be.
Sorry. Counselor Conley.
Well, I came into this process trying to get to 2.5 or under. That was my goal doing this. Although I do hate taking so much out of reserves, because again, it is just deferring what we need for the future. We've done a really good job here, and I'm happy with 2%.
Mayor Randall.
Thank you. Yeah, I concur wholeheartedly. I try, like Deputy Mayor Tennant, to drag things a little lower at times, but you want to be respectful of our future councils, our future citizens, and I think that we have put a lot of work in here, and I think that staff have come with recommendations that in a lot of cases we're agreeing with, and also we've made a few other suggestions that they've agreed with. So I am perfectly fine with the 195. I will say that in our time, the 4 of us that have been here, that would be the lowest tax rate we've ever done. We did a 197, I think year 1 or 2, I can't remember exactly. We have averaged, just because of last year being what it was because of the OPP budget, which is kind of an anomaly. We brought forth taxation at around 2.5%, maybe even a little bit less than that, as Councillor Atkinson alluded to. That's a very good number to be able to average. And I want to say this out loud, because we rail against it a little bit every so often about the growth in this community, and that this group, I respect you all, the previous group, same thing. We were trying to do what's best for our community as we're growing, and people, I know some people don't like it at all. But the growth allows us to have tax increases where they are. And we have to utilize that growth properly and make sure that we're making wise decisions. And I want to thank all of you for making those wise decisions, and in some cases, tough decisions. But man, bringing home a 195 this year is, I think is doing our citizens a good favor, and we are all taxpayers. So I'll take the 195 myself too. Thank you very much.
Nothing's, sorry, Councillor Kavanaugh.
Oh, technology. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm, what are you gonna say? I feel everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's feeling the pinch this year. If we're able to do this for our citizens, I think it's wonderful. I'm incredibly proud of our staff who do so much work. I'm incredibly proud of this team who banter so respectfully with each other over these things to get us to this point.
I love you,
I
Sarah.
love you guys too. Love fest. But yeah, I'd be comfortable. Part of me, just because I'm a brat, want to say 1.99, but I will nod my cap to Deputy Mayor Tennant and say I can support the 1.95. I think I've battled you in previous years over the nickels and dimes, and he never gets his way. So I am happy to be able to comfortably support that and still be very happy with our planning ahead. And so thank you. And yes, I'm on board.
I will interject just my comments on it before we go to a motion of 1.95. I have staunchly defended spending reserves since day one here because they're important that we have reserves for down the road for rainy days. I will, as Councillor Kavanaugh, commend staff coming forward this year with a budget that was thorough, and council in going through these items to get it down to a 1.95% increase. And I'm going to thank council for this is our fourth budget together. And I will say, I think we have done as a group a wonderful job to be able to get to this point where I'm comfortable in using the reserves, knowing that we've protected the reserves for the first 3 years coming into this. And we are in better shape today than we were when I walked into this council chamber 3 years ago. So I will agree with Deputy Mayor Tennant, which I didn't think this would ever come to an agreement on a tax rate increase. So I will, if there's no other discussion, put the motion on the, sorry, there is.
No, so just to summarize that, we're gonna use less reserves by 166,871. And we're going to reduce the tax increase from 3 down to 1.95%, which costs 142,966, which balances our motion to 0 at the bottom. So the motion is that you're gonna approve the amendments 1 through 42 as discussed, right?
So the 1 through 42 includes showing what's coming out of reserves to balance and the resulting tax increase. So of the 1.95. So it's all inclusive, all the changes we made this morning, the approval of the items on the list, use of reserves, and then the bottom line being 0 because we're having a 1.95. So it's all encompassing in the one thing. If we just say the council approve amendments 1 through 42 to the 2026 budget, and then those will be included in the minute.
Can I get a first and seconder on the motion? Councillor Comley and Mayor Randall. All in favor of the proposed motion? Opposed? None? And that motion has passed. Congratulations all, and a job well done. Sorry, yes, we do have one more motion. The suggested motion is that the meeting be adjourned. Oh,
The other motion is that council approve shortening the timeline for amendments to the budget to November 20th. Okay, sorry.
sorry. So can we get a mover and seconder on that? Councillor Atkinson and Councillor Kavanaugh, sorry. All in favor? Sorry.
Why
Mayor-
we do it that time? Why is this motion pertinent?
Because if you then sign off to say you're not going to veto and you issue your mayor's direction in that regard following the meeting, we have it ready to go for you, then that means the budget is adopted today.
Right, and that's why I wanted that to get said, is because I have no intention of doing anything else beyond this. 7 of us have all agreed. Thank you very much. Perfect. It's going to be adopted.
All in favor of the proposed motion? That motion has carried. Sorry, that was not on my list, so I didn't know, so I apologize. The suggested motion is that the meeting be adjourned at 11:37 a.m. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Counselor Comley, Counselor Sekaspina, all in favor? Thank you very much, everybody.